Good morning. Thank you, Benjamin. I have changed part of today's class to give you guys some time to work on your essays. So you are welcome. Preemptively welcome. Oh, I was looking at the wrong thing. Good morning. Hello. How's everybody doing? Pretty good? Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Hello. We'll wait just a couple more minutes and see if we pick up some people because we're missing a lot. And then we will begin talking about ancient Roman drama. Good morning. Yeah, 2 more minutes. We'll get started. I don't know about you guys, but I am freezing this morning. I don't know if it's because it's actually like only what, 56 degrees out. But yeah, I'm very cold today. Not enjoying it. And I don't want to turn my heat on. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully we will pick up a few more people. So I didn't put in, interesting. Did I not put a do now in for today? A journal entry thing. I swear I am. Oh, okay, so I don't have a do now, so I'll come up with a good thing for you to put in your journals. Maybe by the time we get to the end of class, I will have something will strike my brain. I'm a little bit out of it today. Those of you who are in my advisory know that I'm not feeling 100%. Well, we have to have something for your journal entry, but we're not going to do it as a do now. You can do it later. Just a little something to put in. But I think I am coming down with a cold or something. So not 100%, running a little bit on low, but we will have to deal with it. So today we're in Rome. So you're going to see a lot of commonalities between the theater of ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And you are also going to see some things that are very different, because while Rome was really inspired by the theater of ancient Greece, and by inspired, I mean they just basically stole a bunch of ancient Greek theater, they also have a different take on drama. So some things that we need to talk about are that there were a lot more popular forms of entertainment in Rome. And the two that we typically end up talking about is the Circus Maximum and the Colosseum. So does anybody know anything about the Circus Maximum or the Colosseum? Like what they did there? You've probably heard of the Colosseum, I'm guessing. Fought each other. Yeah, Jermaine. Yeah. The gladiatorial combats, right? Where they would like pit right. So Rome, right, you know about the Roman Empire, is like going through, they're conquering places, they're like collecting some of the best warriors from all of these places and making them fight each other, or they would like they'd put like initially when Rome wasn't Christian, they would put Christians in the Colosseum and then put like a bunch of like lions or tigers or bears and stuff. Yeah, is some evidence that maybe they even like reenacted naval battles in the Colosseum. So the Circus Maximum one, though, you may or may not have heard of. It's a little bit different. I had a video, I thought. Where did it go? It was the place where they would stage chariot races or equestrian performances. But a lot of times they would make like people basically race in chariots, and so they'd be racing, but they'd also have like weaponry. So they're like hitting each other and like people are dying as they're like racing, right? So it was pretty bloodthirsty. There were a lot of options if you wanted to go see something huge, something spectacular, you could do it. And the other thing that I want you to know about the Colosseum and some parts of the Circus Maximum is that the Colosseum especially, they were built out of stone. So what does that say about how important it was to Roman citizens? Anybody have an idea? A huge part of the city that's occupied with this big stone structure. Kept them entertained. Good start. Yes. What else? What a symbol of their community. Yes, good. It also means that it was very valuable to them, right? Like culturally, it was a space that was used a lot, right? Because they're making it out of stone. It was a space that they intended to use for a very long time. So think about it the way that we build arenas, right? You go down not too far from the school, you've got the Cowboy Stadium, you've got the Rangers ballpark, right? These are large sort of status symbols. So Rome is making a statement with the Colosseum, especially. Okay. All right. So when Romans were going to the theater, they were actually more drawn to comedy than they were to tragedy. Why do you think that was? Just a guess, if you don't remember.
I don't know. People were tired of depressing stories, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if people, they wanted to laugh, right? The Romans were cooler. If they were not using the plays so much as the Athenians were for, the Athenians used it to like shape their citizenship, right? The Romans are approaching it as entertainment first, right? To stay away from the serious tragedies. Tragedy was unpleasant. But if they wanted to go watch somebody die, they could go and watch somebody really for real die, right? So that probably is also a component of it, right? You could watch a Christian get for real devoured by a lion if you wanted to on an average Friday night, okay? So the first comedian that we're going to talk about is Plautus. All right. So Plautus wrote primarily farce-based comedies. So it sounds interesting, Corey. So he would write plays that were very physicalized, very high pace. They were based on those Greek new comedies that we talked about last time that were based on domestic situations and romance. A lot of Plautus's comedies were really just him taking Greek new comedy and sometimes changing the names to Roman names and changing the references to Roman cities. And that might be about it. That might be all he does. Sometimes he would even leave them with their Greek names and just rewrite it a little bit for Roman audiences. Okay. But that's about it. All of his characters are stock characters. And I'm going to explain what that is in a little bit. So if you don't remember, we were going to talk about it. Yep. So based on Greek new comedies, we don't have any Greek new comedies, but what we have are a couple of Plautus's comedies. And from that, we've inferred what Greek new comedy was like. So what did he do? He added some Roman allusions. He made the dialogue in Latin. He changed up the poetic meter and added some jokes. There was a lot of slapstick. What's slapstick? Physical comedy, right. You guys ever heard of the Three Stooges?
Yes.
I used to watch them.
Yeah. Okay, that's slapstick. Yeah. Right. So very like physicalized, like humor. And he added some music. He added some songs to appeal to Romans specifically. That's pretty much what he did. So he just, in a way, plagiarized Greek new comedies. Now, Rome had a habit of doing this. Rome had a habit of going to a country or going to, you know, a culture and essentially taking all the stuff that they liked. And this also happened with sculpture, right? They would take the stuff that they liked, they would remake it, put a Roman name on it, and then destroy the original so that it looked like all of this stuff had originated in Rome, right? And it wasn't until much later that we actually began to discover like, oh, hey, wait a second. The Romans didn't actually create all of this stuff that they took credit for. So just keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, exactly, Corey. They would get a big fat 0 for plagiarism. Precisely. Okay, good. So that's Plautus. So let's talk about stock characters. Stock characters are characters that don't have a lot of depth. So every stock character has a very specific role that it plays. So it might be like the characters of the young lovers. So you would have like a young, handsome man and a young, beautiful woman. And they would always be that. There would be like the character of an old, like, miser. So like a guy with a bunch of money who like wanted to keep it to himself, right? There would be like the witty servant who's like actually like helping behind the scenes and, you know, puts everything together and doesn't get any credit for it necessarily. So essentially you would have these troops of actors who would always play the same character and they would always be in every script. So after a while, they become a little bit predictable, right? Because it's kind of like you're just watching the same sort of thing over and over and over again. When we get to Commedia dell'arte, you'll see that this is actually something that comes up again and again in Commedia. Commedia is built around stock characters. And we're still using masks, by the way. Just so you know. We're also still using all male actors. So all male actors, we're still using masks. But we don't really have a chorus so much anymore, especially in the comedies. Is any of this sort of bringing up any memories from MYP Theater 1? A little bit?
I only had 1/4 with him.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Then, yeah, no, kind of, yes. All right. So we're all across the board. No big deal. We're getting you caught up. So, okay. The other main Roman comedian playwright is Terence. So Plautus, right? Big physical humor, slapstick. Terence is going to take a whole different approach. So his plays are going to be much more literary and less exaggerated. So his comedy is going to be more witty. And the dialogue is going to be spoken instead of sung. So a lot of Plautus's plays were sung by the actors. Terence is going to indicate that he wants to have the dialogue spoken. I apologize if you can hear my cough drop. So they're going to be more witty. They're not going to be as exaggerated. They're a little bit more like a thinking man's comedy, right? He gets us away from the grandiose, like over the top stuff. So what else does he do? Well, here's some information that's kind of interesting about Terence. That he actually wasn't born a Roman citizen. He was actually born in Carthage. And he came to Rome as a slave and was educated in Rome and eventually freed, partially because he impressed sort of someone of the upper class who wanted to support him as a playwright. He wrote 6 plays, and we actually have all of them, which is pretty unique from this time period, right? We've talked about everything that was destroyed. And Terence's stuff was actually preserved. The other thing about Terence is that his plots were more complex. And he also borrowed a little bit from Greek originals, but came up with new material. But he did use Greek characters. Now, why do you think that might be important? Any ideas? Shows his style? Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. It's also maybe easier to write comedies that weren't about Roman citizens if you're supposed to be making people laugh and making fun of people, right? Easier to sort of like make fun of somebody who's outside of your culture. So he had a very interesting life. All right. Any questions about Plautus or Terence before we talk about mime? Okay, so mime. What do you think of when you think of mime? No words. That black and white guy. Forgotten form of entertainment. Okay. Yeah, mime was a French mime in an invisible box, silence. Okay. Yeah, that's what we think about with mime. Totally different from ancient Roman miming. Okay. It was actually spoken. So there were lines. Okay. So ancient Roman miming was not really what we think about it today. Yeah, totally different. It could be serious or comic. And it actually had female actors. So a big difference is that we have female actors and they're not using masks. Another big thing about mime is that it often featured real violence and sometimes even real sexual content. Miming also frequently made fun of and targeted Christianity. So it was not extremely popular with the church. So as a result, once Rome becomes sort of under the influence of the Catholic Church or the Christian Church, it's not going to last much longer after that, right? But so it was completely different than what we think of mime today. So I want to make sure that you understand when we're talking about it in the context of ancient Roman theater. Well, that's true, Paul. You're right. But they also pretty like openly like mocked the church, scoffed at the church, made fun of like people who were high up in the church. They weren't afraid to really get in there. So a lot different than what we necessarily think of mime today. All right. So let's move on to tragedy. Now, when we talk about tragedy, I mentioned that it wasn't as important to Roman theater as comedy was, right? And in fact, we only really have works from one main Roman tragedian, and that is Seneca. So some key parts of Seneca. Remember how in ancient Greek theater, the chorus really helped drive the action, right? Characters would talk to the chorus sort of represented the citizens of an area. That's not the same thing now in Roman tragedy. Seneca doesn't really use the chorus to drive the plot. He still incorporates the chorus because it's traditional, but doesn't really do a lot as far as moving the plot along. He also depicts violence on stage. So, right, ancient Greek theater, violence would happen off stage and they would talk about it. Seneca puts it front and center, right? I mean, these people are accustomed to seeing, real people getting like eaten by lions. So they're not going to shy away from somebody like carving their own eyes out on stage. Seneca's works, when they were found, were very influential to the people at the time. People like Shakespeare. If you look at a lot of Shakespeare's tragedies, you see the influence of Shakespeare, of Seneca. and other writers in the Elizabethan era and the Restoration, which we're going to get to pretty soon. Once Seneca's plays were uncovered, it sort of becomes, very influential. So like, for instance, Macbeth, right? At the end of Macbeth. Now, we don't see Macbeth get beheaded, but they do bring Macbeth's like head on stage, right? Something like, I don't know, Game of Thrones would have been right up Seneca's alley. Okay, so Seneca's plays were 5 episodes or acts that were divided by choral odes. So in between each act, we would have a chorus. The chorus would come on and sing a song, usually about like what just happened or what's going to happen. His plays featured elaborate speeches and messages about morality. Like I mentioned, they would show the violence on stage. And his characters were primarily really motivated by one thing. So they would be obsessed with a certain person or concept, right? Like Richard III is obsessed with becoming king. Macbeth is obsessed with first becoming king and then staying king. So that's what I'm talking about when you sort of look at the tragedies of Shakespeare. You really see this concept a lot of times of characters that are dominated by this like singular passion that fuels their whole existence. Any questions about Seneca? We see the difference, right, between Greek tragedy and Roman tragedy. They have a few things in common, and they have a lot that is not at all the same. I see a few of you are still writing, so I'm going to give you a minute. And we are pretty much right on time. Okay, so we're going to now talk about Horace. So we've talked about Aristotle, right, who is the first sort of theater critic. Now we've got Horace, who is doing sort of the same thing for Roman drama. So Horace established that tragedy and comedy should be distinct genres. He says that, again, they shouldn't have anything really in common. He says that tragedy should deal with royalty, people of high status who are acting as sort of a substitute or a stand-in for the whole like society or culture. And comedy should deal with like the common people, right? Because we don't want to laugh at or make fun of royalty. So comedy has to be about, little commoners. And Horace is of the opinion that good drama should entertain and teach a lesson, even if that lesson is laughing at or making fun of, how sad and silly the middle class is. That counts as a lesson as far as Horace is concerned. I'm trying to remember what the name of Horace is. So Aristotle, we had Ars Poetica, or the Poetics, and then Horace is, I keep opening the wrong thing. Oh no, Ars Poetica is Horace. So the Poetics is Aristotle, Ars Poetica is Horace. So the art of poetry is what it's called. All right. So we're going to watch a crash course theater on Roman theater that's going to sort of go into more detail about the stuff that we just talked about. Okay. So as you watch this, just sort of take any notes, anything that, expands upon what we've dealt with or any new information, anything you find interesting. That's what we'll do for your journal entry for today. Let's just do our notes for this. Okay. So whatever your journal entry for today is going to be, you can put in your notes for. All right. Let me make sure I've got computer sound on. Yes. Okay.
Hey there, I'm Mike Rignetta. This is Crash Course Theater, and today we'll be looking at the surviving literature of Roman drama, because Roman life wasn't all naval battles, naked miming prostitutes, and Christians being eaten by lions. Sometimes you had to take a break and go watch a play. Much like Roman deities, the most popular form of Roman drama were comedies that borrow heavily from Greek originals, especially the comedies of Menander, with a little bit of Attilan farce thrown into the mix. These comedies are called fabulae palliatae. They have outdoor, urban settings and are filled with stock characters. The hero of the play is typically a type known as the adulas case, a young man who is in love with the girl next door, the Virgo, whom he can't marry because she's of dubious parentage, or he's in love with a prostitute, the Meretrix. Then there's the Senex, usually the father or the old man, who's either a strict miser or a louche skirt chaser. Other characters are the Servus, the wily slave, the Leno, the pimp, the Miles Gloriosus, the bragging soldier, and the Parasite, a slave character who sponges off of his master. Sometimes wives and maidservants appear too. These stock characters get themselves involved in stock plots, often a couple plots per play. Typical ones involve thwarted lovers, disagreement between parent and child, and mistaken identity, which is way easier to pull off when everyone is wearing masks. Sometimes there's a direct address to the audience too, kind of like a parabasis, and almost always there's a happy ending, at least for the lovers. Comedies with happy endings are Yorick's faves. He is a man of infinite jest, after all. Oh, sorry. Was a man of infinite jest. In the Roman plays, most of the people and settings have Greek names, which is either a hat tip to the original source or a real failure of imagination on the part of these writers. But even though the setting is ostensibly Greek, the situations and jokes about current events and even the street names are definitely Roman, especially in the works of Plautus. Plautus and Terence are the two guys we're going to be talking the most about. Why them? Well, partially because they were the greatest practitioners of Roman comedy, but also because, you guessed it, their plays survived. Titus Macius Plautus was born in 254 BCE in Hey there, I'm Mike Rignetta. This is Titus Macius Plautus was born in 254 BCE in Umbria, a landlocked region with a lot of truffles. Legend has it that he worked as a stagehand in his hometown and then failed as a merchant before moving to Rome to write plays. 130 plays are attributed to him, but take that with a grain of Roman salt. A lot of writers tried to pass their plays off as his. A 1st century BCE scholar determined that 20 plays are definitely his, and get this, all 20 survive. More or less. That's fine. I'll take it. Plautus's plays are rambunctious comedies about middle-class people and their slaves. You could even call them musicals because from the meter they're written in, we know that at least half of each play was sung. He was a big influence on medieval and Renaissance writers. Molière was a fan, and we'll see that Shakespeare borrowed most of the comedy of errors from him. People love Plautus because his plays are energetic and uproarious with puns galore and tip-top alliterations that are tricky to translate. Plautus's works are a lot like real life, with more prostitutes and twins and songs, which is to say, I guess, that they're not like real life at all, but they are a hoot When he died in 184 BCE, he apparently wrote his own epitaph. After Plautus died, comedy mourns. The stage is deserted, and then laughter, mirth, and jest all wept in company. Okay, now tell us how you really feel about yourself. Yeesh. The other major comic playwright was Publius Terentius Afer, aka Terence, who's possibly the first playwright of color. Terence was born around the late 180s or early 190s BCE in Africa at Carthage, in a spot that's now a Tunisian suburb. He was a slave owned by a Roman senator who educated him and then freed him. He came to Rome to try to break into the theater by surprising a famous poet at his house. The poet was not thrilled, but then Terence began to read his play, and suddenly the poet was totally into it. Don't take too many lessons from this, though. I didn't get this job by showing up on Stan's doorstep with a stack of things to explain. It's not a great plan. Terence wrote 6 plays, which borrowed heavily from Menander. Cicero even called him a pint-sized Menander. After the 6th, he decided that he needed to travel more to write better plays, so at the age of 25, he left Athens and died at sea. His style is more sophisticated than Plautus's. The comedy is a little less rowdy, but the ironies are deeper. The characters are saner, the meter is more regular, and the constructions are sturdier. Fewer plot holes, fewer dirty jokes, some really elegant Latin. And the women aren't treated that badly, so that's nice. These are classier plays, but they're maybe not as funny. And hey, one more difference. In Plautus and Menander, the prologue basically tells you what's going to happen. Terence doesn't do that. He creates suspense. To take a closer look at Roman comedy, we're going to check out one of Plautus's plays, The Menachmi, or The Menachmus Twins, which we selected because Shakespeare borrowed most of it for the Comedy of Errors. The Menachmi begins with a prologue addressed directly to the audience. An actor comes out and tells everyone, hey, listen up, this is Plautus. You love Plautus. Give it up. Give it up for our man Plautus. The prologue tells us that once there was a merchant from Syracuse who had identical twin sons. He took one of those sons to Epidamnus, where the son was kidnapped, and the merchant died of a broken heart. Both boys eventually end up being called Menachmus, which is a little weird, but hey, you do you. For simplicity, we're gonna call them M in the thought bubble. Years after their poorly fated trip, Syracuse M comes to Epidamnus searching for his brother, Epidamnus M. Epidamnus M is infatuated with a prostitute, Erotium, a name that basically means sexy. He keeps giving her all of his wife's stuff, which, understandably, makes his wife mad. Epidamnus M and his parasite servant go to visit Erotium. He gives her one of his wife's dresses and tells her to prepare a feast. And then he goes away. Syracuse M comes in, gets mistaken for Epidamnus M, and gets to eat Erotium's feast. And he's all, this place is rad. But somehow it never occurs to him that maybe he's been mistaken for the identical twin brother he's been searching for 6 years. Yeah, there are some plot holes. After the feast, Erotium gives Syracuse M the dress and tells him to take it to the tailor. Meanwhile, Epidamnus M's wife is like, why do you keep giving all of my dresses to your prostitute? So he tries to get it back from Erotium, and she's like, dude, I just gave it to you. Then his wife sees Syracuse M and mistakes him for her husband. He doesn't recognize her, so she tries to have him arrested for craziness and maybe dress stealing. Just then, Epidamnus M enters, and the two identical brothers see each other, but it still doesn't occur to Syracuse M that this is the brother he's been looking for. Luckily, the smart servant figures it out. The brothers are reunited, and Epidamnus M decides to auction off all of his stuff, including his wife, so he can return with his brother to Syracuse. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So yeah, it's absurd, sexist, heavily reliant on stock characters and stock situations, but still funny. Not all of Roman drama is quite so hilarious, though. Take the work of Seneca the Younger. Please. Haha, just a little comedy for you there. Seneca Jr. is born Lucius Annaeus Seneca in what is modern-day Cordoba, Spain in 4 BCE. That's just a little while after Horace publishes the Ars Poetica, the first major work since Aristotle's Poetics to tell people what plays should be. Seneca's dad was a big deal rhetorician, and when he was young, he was moved to Rome to study Stoic philosophy because there's nothing the kids like more than Stoicism. He came to adulthood during a pretty volatile time in Roman history. Little Seneca, who grew up to be another big deal rhetoric guy, kept running afoul of emperors, which was easy to do because a lot of them were dangerous psychopaths. Caligula almost executed Seneca, then Claudius banished Seneca on the grounds of adultery. Claudius's wife called him back and installed him as a tutor for Nero, who became emperor, and kept Seneca on as a counselor. But then Nero went a little crazy, and even though Seneca was retired, Nero blamed him for taking part in a conspiracy and ordered him to kill himself. So Seneca did. Man, Stoics. Ew. When Seneca wasn't being threatened by emperors, he sometimes wrote plays, which are mostly revisions of classic Greek works, and they're all tragedies. One possible exception is his Apocolocentausis, a satire about the emperor Claudius that no one really likes and which maybe he didn't even write. In general, Roman tragedies based on Greek subjects are known as fabulae crepidatae, and there were lots, 300 years worth, but basically Seneca's are the only ones that survive. Seneca's tragedies are notable because they're the first to favor the 5-act structure that Shakespeare would adopt. They have a different relationship to the divine, with a lot less confidence that the gods are going to help everything work out, which is to say they're pretty dark. It makes sense when you remember all of the scary, violent emperors who were ruling Rome during Seneca's time. Nero was as merciless and arbitrary as even the most capricious god. And remember all that stuff the Greeks liked to keep off stage? Like, say, really extreme and incredibly gory violence? That's just the kind of thing Seneca wants to show. Because atrocities, especially those perpetrated on the weak by the powerful, were facts of life in his society. And also a regular feature in violent entertainments like gladiator fights. So if you've ever thought, hey, I'd really like to see Oedipus blind himself, and maybe he could actually tear out both of his eyeballs, man, I have got a play for you. But not you. You don't have eyes. Because of scenes like that one, and the fact that Seneca was a high-class kind of person, there's been a lot of debate about whether his plays were actually performed, or whether they were closet dramas meant to be read rather than produced. Certainly some of the scenes, like the cannibal meal in Thyestes, would have required special effects, but let's not put some creepy props or even extreme violence beyond the limits of the Roman stage. Remember, these are the people who thought that a group of dwarves beating a woman with spiked clubs was just normal entertainment. Check us out next time for a survey of ancient Sanskrit theater. And then, theater's gonna disappear for a while, at least in the West. Until then, curtain. Crash Course Theater is produced in association with PBS Digital Studios. Head over
Sorry. I was asking, what did you think about the video? You can either come off mute or put it in the chat. Quite strange. Okay, what do you mean? You think today would find the stock characters boring? Okay. Do you know of any stock characters in, maybe if not modern theater, in modern entertainment? Everyone was sexist and violent. Yeah, it's pretty wild. All kind of cliche. Okay. Were you surprised about what happened to Seneca? You didn't think he'd actually kill himself? Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? The emperor told him to do so, so he did. Yeah. A lot of it was about, respect for the emperor. You couldn't really go against the emperor, right? Okay, so put down your reactions for your journal entry for today. Okay, that'll be your journal entry. So that way we will get you sort of all set up with that, since we didn't do a do now. So I had a group project, but I got rid of it. I want to give you this time to work on your SLA essays that are due. If you look in Schoology, you're going to see a self-assessment. Please look over the, what is it called? Let me pull it up really quick. Please look over the thing here, the communication rubric. We're getting the self-assessments pushed back, so they're not actually going to be due on the 13th. Okay. It was okay back then, take both your eyes out for a play. Yeah. Just put in a random slave and make him take, gouge his eyes out. Why not? But please look over this communication rubric so that it's not a shock when you see it next week. All right. But I want to give you this time. We've got about what? How many minutes do we have? Got about 12 minutes. Okay. So I want to give you some time to look at your essays. So let's go to, can you guys see Schoology? Yes, you can see your Schoology. So under the 914, no, where is it? Is that under the 9? No. Where did I put your essay? I guess I didn't do it. I have to put that in then. So I thought I had it in here though, didn't I? Am I crazy? I'm very tired, so that's possible. Yeah, it is your, is it this? No. Sorry, we're doing it live. We're doing it live. My apologies. All right. Let me input your essay here. I can find it. I created this whole thing. Let me stop the share and see if I can find it. Your SLA essay. I made it in Schoology and now I can't find it for some reason. Okay, the essay is going to be due on 9/14. Okay. And what you are going to be doing is writing a 300-word essay on an aspect of SLA that you can use in either your life or that you can use that we use in theater. There it is. And I'm importing it now. So I'm putting it in the 9/14 folder. Okay. So it's due by midnight there. And if you click on that, there is just one question. Yes, I can repeat it. Actually, let me share. Sorry, guys. Thank you for being patient. Okay. So write a 300-word essay based on the following prompt. Reflect on the lessons we discussed during SLA, so the whole Student Learning Academy. What, if any, of those lessons can you apply to theater? Some hints on topics to consider: mindfulness, physical fitness, and emotional wellness. Okay, so I gave you some hints. It's only 300 words and it's due on the 14th. So if you go to our course, class content, and go to the 14th through the 18th, and click on the 14th, it's right here. Don't worry about the self-assessment yet. We are gonna get new due dates for that. I just want you to look at that and make sure that you know. If you don't remember SLA, go through your advisory folder and check out what the PowerPoints were about, okay? Or talk to your advisor, ask them for the PowerPoints, okay? But because we have to have 3 summatives and we only have 4 weeks, in the fine arts, we all sort of got together and decided that the easiest, like, first one would be to have just like a short little mini writing assignment. So that's what we decided on. So art, theater, basically everyone who's in 10th grade is getting this as their first assignment. So you don't have to do the self-assessments yet, but I do want you to think about this SLA essay. And if you need access to the PowerPoints, they might be in your advisory, or you can sort of flip through the videos in your advisory, right? Go back to my PowerPoint. And did I have an exit ticket for today? I don't think I did, actually. No. So you don't have to do an exit ticket for today. I just want you to, how many SLAs do you have? You mean for the student learning? You had, you know, like what do we have? Like was it 2 weeks of it? So you have plenty of topics to choose from. I'm just hinting at like I'm suggesting that mindfulness and, you know, that stuff might be pretty good to look at first. But if there's another one that you would rather do, then that's fine with me. I was just suggesting what you might be interested in. Questions. I want to answer any questions that you have. Anything that I can help you with or explain? What's due today? You don't have anything due today. All you have to do is your journal entry, right? So the Seneca notes, do that. And that's for your journal. So you'll have that. But you don't have anything specifically due today. I just want you to give you some time to start working on your SLA stuff. So the next time we meet, you will have your SLA essay due, right? And we will be talking about Elizabethan theater. And you don't have an exit ticket. I think that's for the other class. So you guys don't have an exit ticket. Okay. Oh, that's right. That was the wrong. Oh my God, this thing at the top is just driving me nuts. There we go. Let me double check if there was anything that I needed to give you, anything that we needed to talk about. Nope, that's it. Okay. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions, stick around. You can send me a message. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Please make sure that you do your SLA essays. Bye. Thank you. Goodbye. All right, gentlemen, for the you don't have to worry about it yet. We're going to talk about that next week. So you just have to do the SLA essays, or yeah, just the SLA essay.